Unite, join hands, stand shoulder to shoulder, and work hard to place Ghana where she deserves to be, a prosperous and dynamic member of the global community, making her own unique contribution to the growth of world civilization. My immediate task will be to continue with the process of reversing the effects COVID-19 has had on our economy and on our lives, and put the nation on course for full economic recovery and development.
Advisedly, since the inception of the Fourth Republic, final election results have always been declared within a 72-hour period to allow for thorough and diligent collation. Surprisingly, this Electoral Commission chairperson announced quite suspiciously, and for reasons known to her, a hurried 24-hour deadline, which, as we all know, could not and would not be met. The chairperson of the EC, in less than 24 hours after her declaration, has admitted that she made unacceptable errors which go to the heart of the entire electoral process and cast deep doubt on the credibility of the announced outcome. The Electoral Commission of Ghana has never brought its credibility to this historic low at such a crucial moment of election results declaration. In fact, the litany of irregularities and blatant attempts at rigging for a candidate is obvious and most embarrassing.
He said the facts and figures on the pink sheets available to them indicate that numerous steps were taken to manipulate the elections in favor of the incumbent president.
The Ashanti region provides fundamental problems that require further investigation and a full electoral forensic audit. Evidence gathered across board shows that the aggregates on the summary sheets of some constituencies do not reflect the individual results on the polling station pink sheets. You may also recall that prior to the election day, December 7th, there were many incidences where ballot papers tamperinted in favor of candidate Nana Akufo-Addo were found at various locations.
He said the NDC is unable to accept the results of the elections as announced by the Electoral Commission.
As has been announced by my party, the National Democratic Congress, we are unable to accept the outcome of the election as declared by the Electoral Commission chairperson, Mrs. Jean Mensah. These results are flawed and discredited. When it comes to the parliamentary election, the NDC won a working majority of 140 seats.
Right, so you saw those playbacks of events that happened in the course of the week, a declaration by Madam Jean Mensah, and followed by the president-elect's acceptance speech, as it were. And then we heard former President John Dramani Mahama, who is the flag bearer of the NDC, indicate that the party was not going to accept the results of the polls. He cited a number of issues grounding that decision of the party. We'll be looking at that right here on the show this morning. Let me start with you, Dr. Ali Duseidu. December 7th, a long day waited. It came. Elections conducted. A few issues here and there, not widespread though. Declaration of results. Then we are currently where we are at, with an indication that yes, the NDC is not going to accept the results of the polls, and they've cited a number of reasons there, one of them being the fact that the EC itself made an error that it describes as an inadvertent error, and based on that, among other issues, the party has decided not to accept the results. Your thoughts?
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning to you and then to your viewers. I think the 2020 election is one of the most crucial elections we've had in this country, though the 8th in a series of elections. But every election is different from the other, very unique, even though conducted in the same country and even contested by the same people. So I think there were two levels. Okay, first, to assess the entire process, the electoral process is divided into 3 electoral calendars. The pre-election, the election day, and then the post-election. The pre-election day had a little bit of challenges, especially with regards to the voter registration exercises. We went past it successfully. Election day was quite smooth, very relatively peaceful. People were able to vote in a manner that was swift. The process was very swift. But there were isolated cases. If you read the Codillo report, it actually recorded about 205 incidents or cases broadly, including intimidation, violence, including suspension of voting and counting, ballot stuffing, and all those things. We are in the post-election stage, which is very crucial. The EC has declared the results, and the opposition NDC said they are not going to accept it. I think 2 things are very crucial here. If you look at this year, the EC instituted a lot of mechanisms to achieve 2 things: transparency and participation. Now, from the polling station, we have the representative of all political parties, international observers, local observers, and the security. So after the declaration of the results, all political party agents will have the results, and they are allowed to make inputs, accept or contest those particular results before they are sent to the constituency collation center. The same process is done. Political parties representatives are there. Then this year, I think the EC even introduced the regional collation center, then to the national collation center. So it will be weird that results that has been collated from all these levels to the national level may differ, because all the political parties have agents, and they all have the pink sheets, and they all have the results. So I think the NDC's allegation that leads to the denial of the results is in 2 parts. The first one has to do with the presidential, and they're arguing that there were a lot of results that was sent, I think 3 regions that were not verified, because they believe that the results that were collated from the polling station level up to the constituency regional are quite different from the one that was sent to the national. That has been the first allegation, and they have reasons to believe that their polling agents at the strong room, so their representative at the strong room or the national collation center, didn't certify those results, and those results must be satisfied and agreed by all the agents there before it is declared. So because that wasn't done, the process wasn't fair. But even in the declaration, the EC made a mistake with percentages, which they later rectified. So it all goes to taint a little bit, or significantly, depending on who you speak to, the outcome of the results. That's the first part. The second part, the electoral commissioner is not the returning officer for the constituency level. Sure. So the second part has to do with the polling station constituency results. The NDC have reasons to believe that they have a working majority of 140, but the EC, that's the allegation, in conjunction with the military, seeks to overturn some of these results. And for that matter, they are not going to allow it to stay. Every political party has the right to contest an election results if they have reasons to believe that things were not properly done, there were serious infractions. So what I do urge them to do is to do this within the confines of the law. That is very important. And this is not the first time in the history of the Fourth Republic that election results have been contested. Sure. But this must be done within the confines of the law. Maybe I'll allow my other colleagues to, so that I can talk about moving forward, what we should do. Right.
Now, Bobby, let me come to you. Your thoughts on this as well. Talking about how the process went and where we are at currently. Dr. Ali Duseidu has talked about the processes, aimed at ensuring transparency and participation by all stakeholders. Yet, we seem to have come to a point where there's still some confusion, raising questions about how well that whole inbuilt process of participation and transparency worked. Your thoughts?
I would want to take it from the angle of the participants in the whole process. The Electoral Commission, the political parties, and the registered voters. the Electoral Commission is the leader in all these. And so if the pre-election, election day, post-election processes were devoid of any controversy, we are going to pat them in the back. And if, of course, there are controversies and there are issues, we must start with them. Before the elections, the tension between the Electoral Commission and I would say mostly the NDC, as a result of some of the things that they said may have happened, may not have happened at IPAC meetings, were all contributory factors to the mistrust that we saw playing out for the whole process, starting from the registration, re-registration of the voters. But the EC kept consistently assuring us that everything was going to be fine. I would say that on the day of the election, I was impressed with the voting process.
It's quite
expeditious. So it was, yes, I spent less than 3 minutes at the polling station, and I was very impressed. So for that, you give them the pat in the back. But what has happened subsequently shows that there may be developing a problem with the institution as the Electoral Commission. Because in my short life, my seniors are here too, they may have witnessed more elections closely than I have. I don't recall either during Dr. Farijan's time or Madam Charlotte Osei's time that there would be fundamental errors such as arithmetic mistakes. And that is something that was quite an eyesore, that results will be declared with certain figures, and the next day the EC says, oh, we did an error. And it's mathematics, so you input something before you generate the output. So you cannot come and say that only the output was an error. Then it will raise questions as to what figures did you put into the system that generated what you later said to be an error. And it really is a dent on some of the things that have happened subsequently. Now, if you move to the political parties, I think this is the first time that I have heard the two major political parties both having issues with the results. So mostly you would see that it is the losing party alone that would say that we have issues with the results. Of course, with the presidential, the MPP is not contesting it. But with the parliamentary, when I heard the Deputy Attorney General, he said they will contest some of the parliamentary results as well. And you have the MPP also saying that we will also contest some of the parliamentary results. So it means that there are problems with the process. Then you ask yourself whether after conducting 8 elections over a period of 32 or 28 years, since 1992, whether some of these mistakes, whether they are individuals that learn or that repeat these mistakes, or as an institution, there's a mechanism for growing, developing their human resources, so that some of these errors do not happen. You heard in Tema, a whole officer said he went home with a pink sheet because he was tired and went to sleep and came back with a pink sheet. I mean, this is something that a well-educated and trained Electoral Commission officer could have avoided. But you see it happening. The results there, until they were officially declared, nobody knew who had won. It showed how close, I think one of the Tema East or Tema West constituencies, it shows how close it was. And so if, for example, the political parties had rejected the pink sheet that the electoral officer later brought, it would have thrown the whole, results in that constituency into. And so it's you ask yourself whether they are learning as an institution, whether they are individuals that have done this for 4 times, 3 times, 2 times, and they are consistent learning as the institution, so that some of these mistakes do not repeat themselves.
Very well.
Now with the political parties, like we expect, one side will always not be happy. Whether or not their claims would be backed by evidence is another thing. Like my doctor said, in 2012, the MPP decided to go to the Supreme Court. They laid all the evidence. We saw the outcome by the Supreme Court. The NDC is saying for both parliamentary and presidential, they are gathering enough of their evidence to be able to decide on the next line of action. They have 21 days for the presidential from the date of declaration. So we are hoping that they will tell all of us what their next steps are, and then we will see how the judicial process would go. The fact of the NDC, some leading members asking their supporters to go out and jubilate to mass up at the Electoral Commission office is something that we should all condemn. It could have, spilled out if the NPP supporters had also decided. Look at a place like Odododio. Common, how did they call it? Walk. They call it peace walk, results in chaos.
Yes.
Then how much more celebration?
Yeah.
So it's something that was a very, very dangerous thing that they did. And I think that they should be ashamed of themselves, because the NDC has ruled the country or has won elections as many times as the NPP has won. And this is election where you don't see a gap of 1 million.
No.
And so it's very close. So somebody would say MPP has supporters as much as or almost as much as the NDC and vice versa. And so if you ask your supporters to go out, and imagine we had 1 million out of the 6 million persons on the streets of Ghana trying to celebrate, how many policemen do we have?
Right.
To be able to cope with this. So I think the political parties must also learn, and then, because this Ghana is for all of us, and if we would have peace, it's not based on only the Electoral Commission or only the police or the army or the political parties. It's all of us, a collective effort.
Very well.
We must also contribute to that.
Very well, thanks for that. Bobby, let me quickly announce that we've been joined via Zoom by Dr. John Osai Kwapong. He is a Democracy and Development Fellow with CDD Ghana. Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good morning and welcome. We'll be with you in a bit. Right, so let me come to you, Ms. Opong. A number of issues raised, if you like, the lapses or the flaws and all. How do you see them vis-a-vis the outcome of the elections? Is there a basis to say that, well, considering all of these things, well, then perhaps we should be looking at this again?
Well, the two great intellectuals have spoken. I wonder whether I have anything more useful to add.
Yeah.
But speaking for myself, I think, and then I want to take it from aspects of what Bobby said, and also Doctor. The Electoral Commission works with Ghanaians. So you see that over the years, we have rather concentrated on the voter, their conduct, and their behavior on the election day. We have not, as it were, consistently focused our attention on the people the EC recruit. A large number of them are recruited just for the election, and then they'll go away. I don't think they have that many people who they have employed as permanent employees. So if you get a situation where someone can just decide intentionally in taking off a sheet for a person to vote, ensures that one of the contestants or candidates' image doesn't appear, we must see serious criminal proceedings or prosecution about these matters. For them to also know that, like in the case of the voter, crime does not pay. And I think that if something is done about it, before a person thinks of offering himself to be recruited by the EC for election, they will think twice. Over the years, it does appear that they have gone away with a lot of these criminal acts, which have then resulted in political parties or contestants then refusing to accept results with all the problems that we have faced and continue to face. So we need to look at that aspect also. Then also, as for rejection of elections, it started in 1992, stolen verdicts. Remember, the MPP decided not to do anything about it other than to write a book to catalog the problems that they thought were associated with the election. And then it culminated in a Supreme Court petition in 2012.
Right.
So there are many ways by which you may decide to express your dissatisfaction with the electoral process. And that is why some of us have thought that earlier on, the NDC would have told us at that time, at the beginning, the remedies, including even writing them, because I heard President Mahama say, this is the real stolen verdict.
Yeah.
They're going to just write a book about it and then rethink about how to participate in the next 2024 elections. Then there were hints about lawyers being ready or being the legal team being put together to help the people in the constituencies. Are they also going to take over a case at the Supreme Court? I've always maintained that when there is a problem or a dispute which can only be resolved by the law court or by law, don't waste time. Just go to the court. It will usually calm your supporters down because they know that they risk going to jail or otherwise being punished for contempt. So, even though in the last statement that President Mahama issued, there was no direct indication as to the legal remedy that they were going to. What I took from it was that there is a possibility that this dispute that appears to be staring at us may end up in the only place that the law permits it to be adjudicated on, and that is the Supreme Court. Fortunately, the law has now made it so easy and more comforting. Within 42 days, the Supreme Court must give a decision. You're not going to go through the rigors of the 8 months and more, which put all of us on the edge in 2012. It won't happen. Whatever it is, there are even provisions that may allow them to just dismiss a case outright within a short period of time. So whoever has a dispute, and again, there have been instances where even though the MPP won, parliamentary elections have been challenged. I mean, Asari and Baba Jamal case and a few others also, Yabua, J.H. Mensah, and the rest of them. That is the best way to deal with these matters. And it will seriously calm down these teaming supporters. I mean, I've always said that even as lawyers, when your client loses a case, you feel so much pain. And I believe it is even more serious if it's a political contest. The amount of energy, the expenditure of energy and resources alone. And the fact that you've been defeated by a colleague or somebody else that you thought you were better than, or at least you match, that will give you pain. And that may lead you to take actions or speak in a manner that will even surprise many people. And that is where it is always important to be calm, if you can. If you cannot, just get people to at least be around you and listen to other institutions. We have the Peace Council. There were indications of they also having issues when they wanted to go to talk to some of the party officials. All these things happen. But I also observe that those people we nominate to be agents for the candidates can also help to nip some of these things in the bud even before they even occur. MPP did well in 2016. You can see lawyers, accountants, auditors, doctors as their agent. This time, I think the NDC did better. And so if people like that, and without any disrespect to others, but I'm saying that if you allow people like that to be around the polling station, because it came out clearly, as if we didn't know, in the Supreme Court petition, that the elections are won at the polling stations. And so the people you send there must be people of a caliber that can not only read, but understand figures, for example, which some of us lawyers may fall short, but we also have our strengths when it comes to analyzing legal issues that come up. So for now, I think we've done very well. Isolated cases, very regrettable, but we've done very well. And I think that if we maintain even what the peaceful environment we have now, some of the advanced countries may even just come down here to learn. We know what happened recently.
Definitely.
And some of those countries. So it shouldn't be about too much of the gloomy aspect.
Very well.
Yes, we've done well, and I think we can do better if we accept that we have done well now.
Thank you for that. Let's cross over to Zoom where Dr. John Osai-Kwapong is. Doc, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay. So obviously, getting to the point of declaration of results is one that would, require certain processes that should be, quote unquote, sacrosanct to ensure that when the outcome is declared, there'll be very little or in fact no basis at all to question it. Would you say from where you sit that the process as we saw it was or had that level of, if you like, foolproof nature that we would want to see, an election process have, so as to ensure that kind of, how do I put it, certainty of the declaration of the results, so that, it would be difficult to impugn it. Do you think the process as we witnessed had that feature, or there are certain parts of it that, put together would ground, for instance, the NDC's decision to question it or not accept the results?
So having watched Election Day, play out, and having watched the trickling in of the provisional results as they were being declared at the polling station, and seeing the media also following those results and updating us as regularly as they can, it generally looked like everything was proceeding quite smoothly, that everything was proceeding according to the laid down rules and procedures in terms of, once the voting is done, how the counting proceeds, how the declaration at the polling station proceeds, the affirmation by the party agents in terms of their signatures on the pink sheets, and then moving it to the constituency coalition centers, etc., till it gets to the EC for final certification and declaration. And so generally it looked like the process was going on as had been prescribed. And then, of course, eventually there were reports of certain isolated incidences. And I think that given how, quote unquote, contentious elections can be, generally also because it's a very, quote unquote, fierce competition between two major political parties, all vying for the opportunity to enact their policies and their ideas in the service of the nation. You can understand why elections become such a high stakes contest. And so because of that, even the slightest of deviations from the processes that we have laid down, even if it is truly an administrative human error, not preconceived, etc., that it raises the slightest, or it begins to generate in people's minds then whether the outcome is as true and pure as it is. And I think that is where the worry starts coming in, when some of these issues starts popping up. So one clearest example for me is the correction that the EC made to the declaration in terms of the percentages, and saying we should have used the right valid votes cast. Right now, I accept the explanation. I accept what I truly want to trust the EC that it has no material effect on the outcome, right? I am willing to give the EC the benefit of the doubt. But again, in a highly political environment where there's fierce contestation, you can see how something like that would sow some kind of doubt in people's minds as to, well, what other errors were there in the input, and can we fully then trust can we fully then trust the output? And I think for that, the burden, one, is on the Electoral Commission to continue to reassure Ghanaians that truly nothing untoward happened, that some of these quote-unquote errors that they've had to correct were, these are very genuine attempts to really make sure that errors are corrected. The other thing too then is that the good thing now is political parties and their representatives have copies of the pink sheets. I think that's one of the most important things that came out of the 2012 petition and the ruling that allowed political parties to get copies of the pink sheets. So I think that if whatever the EC is declaring is at odds with what the political parties believe that they consented to and signed on at the polling stations, I think there's that opportunity to do the comparison, to do the tabulation, to provide, the available. Again, all in the name of ensuring that the output is validated to the point where nobody walks away still having doubts in their mind whether this is truly the outcome or not. And again, for me, I think it's really important that when all is said and done, when everything is cleaned up, and when all the confusions, disagreements are finally settled, that we would all have faith, not just in the institution of the EC, but also have the kind of confidence that says the outcome is truly what reflects the will of the Ghanaian people when they went to the polls on December 7th.
Very well. Thanks, Doc. We'll be getting back to you shortly. But back to you, Bobby. Picking up from where Dr. Osai-Kwakwan left off, the bit about the pink sheets and what transpired at the election petition of 2013, you would have thought that with that clear procedural direction, as in parties should have the pink sheets, you would think that elections wouldn't be contested, because before it's signed off, everybody agrees to the content. And so where we find ourselves now raises a bit of some concerns, doesn't it?
Yes, and I have heard the NDC communicators say on various media platforms and social media that I think they are really contesting about 5 constituencies, that there were problems with 5. MPP, I heard the Deputy Attorney General speak about 1. The NDC is saying out of the 5, in some of the constituencies, their agents did not sign the sheets.
So how then did they get to the next level?
That is the problem, the question they are asking. And I was particularly impressed they made that statement, because then you see that at least they have learned from 2013 that the moment you sign, that is it. So they have said that in some of the polling stations or some of the constituencies, the final results, their agents refused to sign because they knew, or they thought, or they were contending that it wasn't what was counted.
So then there are cases where the NDC refused to sign.
Yes, and yet the EC officials went ahead
to certify.
To certify.
Okay, so that's worth interrogating.
Some of them, yes. Some of them too, they claim that what they signed is not what was sent to the EC, either the regional coalition centers.
Yeah, right.
And so they say they have pink sheets that have different numbers compared to the ones that were taken up to the regional coalition centers. And so if they're able to bring evidence because I think in the Eastern region also, they claim that what they signed, the elections were declared. They have video recordings of the declaration of the figures. But what was transmitted to the regional or the EC
the coalition centers, right.
Yes, were different and did not have their signatures. So if you go, social media is this, I don't know how true they are, is displaying pink sheets that have the same polling constituency, all the parties' signatures with different figures, and another pink sheet from the same constituency That has only MPP and I think GUM and another parties without the NDC signature. So it goes to show that at least the parties from 2013 are becoming more conscious of the fact that the moment you sign, then you have very little chance of contesting it.
Right.
So they are refusing to sign some of them. And I think in the MPP instance as well, they said they would sign under protest. So I heard the Deputy Attorney General also make that statement, that the one that they are really contesting, for the sake of peace, they are going to sign, but under protest, so that they will inform the Electoral Commission that we reserve our right to challenge the results. So I think the 2013 petition and the outcome, and the fact that the pink sheets are the most important singular document in the whole process. And if you don't train your agents well and they just go and sign, you cannot come back and say that that is not what was counted. It's, as lawyers will say, you are stopped from denying the content of the written documents that you have signed. So I was quite happy hearing the political actors speaking to the fact that, well, this time we have our pink sheets which were signed. It means they are learning.
Sure.
And it's not just coming to say, well, the elections were flawed because they are speaking to the basis of the allegation. So I just hope that at the opportune time and at the appropriate forum, both MPP and NDC would bring the evidence that they claim they have gathered.
Clearly, they know what evidence they need to be presenting.
Exactly. They know what exactly. And like Senior Paul said, with the new election dispute resolution manual, you cannot just go and waste anybody's time.
Exactly.
Once you go the preliminary stage, they see that you've not produced enough evidence. They will not waste anybody's time. They will just dismiss your case. So I'm sure that is why John Mahama, the ex-president John Mahama, said that they've sent a team of lawyers
auditing
to the various constituencies to actually put together the evidence. And you see, I've said this.
Some would ask, while that statement is a good one, obviously, to ensure that you win your case, some are saying that, so currently as we're speaking, or as you are speaking, i.e. the NDC, you haven't done the audit. So what is the basis for questioning the results as it stands?
I am sure that they have, at least their polling agents or their constituency executives may have informed them. But you see, unlike in the past, where they will just run with what they have been told, this time they know Ghanaians are watching. If you just go and present any bogus petition to the Supreme Court, you will embarrass yourself.
Sure.
Because where would the evidence be?
Yeah.
And if he looks at it and then he sees the lesson, if you go to court, we don't have evidence, we have lost. Senior Pon said there's an option of writing a book. Go and write the book.
Or give it to the Lord in prayer.
That's all.
And then lick your wounds, like we say. Put together a better team at the polling station levels the next time.
Right.
And on the other hand, there's the overall test as to whether or not the proven, if indeed it is proven, errors will affect the whole outcome.
Sure.
We have come to accept that from the 2013, that is the underlying test. So if the gap as declared by Electoral Commission is over 500,000, and we see that from the errors that you've brought and everything, it is 300,000. Even if all those votes are given to you, you are still not going to win, and it will not affect the outcome. So I'm sure they will go through all that process. However, I also think that there's the moral aspect of it. That if the NDC or the MPP, because both of them say they will challenge an aspect of the results, is able to prove that even one vote was not counted, they would dent the credibility of the EC. And they would have won that moral, battle. Let me put it that way. That yes, the overall thing, it will not affect the outcome. But the EC, we expect almost a flawless election. And so if we are saying that in Techima and South, in Mr. Jogate's constituency, there were these instances, and they're able to prove, it may not affect the outcome, but it will show that the EC still has a long way to go after conducting 8 elections.
Right.
And that is where the problem is.
Right. Yes, sure, very well.
In fact, in the presidential election petition judgment, one of the lordships said that it is indeed fraudulent for the agent of a party to accept results at the polling station and then his principals then come to court to deny or disavow what his own agent has accepted. It's a fraudulent act. And that's why I said that the people you send to the polling stations must be people who have some knowledge and skill and competence in these matters, and not just recruit people who, just because they can read, they become a bit gullible, and these things happen. But again, talking about the results and what has happened so far, you will see that there is a call, or there is an allegation that the results were flawed. And I asked myself, are we contesting the entire results to the extent that the election should be annulled, or the ones that those making the allegation believe were flawed, that should be contested? Because you don't really get the entirety of it. For example, there are problems with Ashanti region, but the figures show that now, even though Volta region may continue to be the World Bank of NDC, I say that Ashanti region is now their Bank of Ghana or commercial bank, because they got more votes in Ashanti region than they even had in Volta region. When you put the figures together, Ashanti region, they got 653,149. Volta region, 606,508. So what is it that is wrong with the Ashanti figures, which have now, I don't know about last 2016, but then looking at these figures alone will tell you that NDC now is even stronger in Ashanti region than in the Volta region, even though percentage terms, they had higher percentage, far higher percentage in Volta region than in, but when it comes to presidential, it's the numbers, the individual votes that count. That will then put together. After all, you even need one additional vote after 50 to even become a president. So I think if we get clarity about this, maybe it's also because they don't want to put their evidence on the table now for people to start counting. But now we all understand that litigation is not a battle, or is not even a game. You have to put all your cards on the table, even before you commence proceedings. So if we are able to, perhaps they've done some preliminary investigation and have had some prima facie evidence or conclusion about these things. I am more concerned about giving the supporters some comfort, because if you ever drive around the NDC headquarters at Adabraka, people are still not satisfied with what is going on. And you need to calm them down. And I'm saying that once these documents and evidence are ready, they don't even have to wait up to the end of the 21 days given them. They can just immediately file these processes so that it will calm them down, and then the pockets of violence and disturbances will also stop. As I said, knowing that you are better off not even going before the Supreme Court for contempt proceedings. Even if you come back home on that day, you all know what happened in 2016, 2012 during the presidential election petition. So it is important that and sometimes after the leaders have spoken, that's at the top hierarchy, then other executives also come to say totally different things. If we get to know exactly what the position is, then we'll be satisfied. And for also the MPP, the areas they are challenging, and maybe we'll come to the issue of the presidential election.
The parliamentary as well. We'll do that, yes.
The figures that, the contest that may occur in Parliament. But if they also have some serious issues about this, once the results are gazetted for the presidential, immediately
time starts running for them as well.
They should start preparing, lawyers should be busy, and we will all just ensure that no one takes us for granted. Because the Ghanaian voter, for me, is one of the most sophisticated voters in the world.
Definitely. We'll be looking at the sophistication of the Ghanaian voter, I mean, when we come back from a break. But before we go on the break, let me go to Dr. Ali Desaidu quickly. As we wrap up on the conduct of it and how things have panned out, let's hear you on this. Now, Mr. Mahama describes the EC's performance as being of a historic low. You obviously have observed many elections from afar and all of that. Do you think that this is indeed the best description for the EC at this point?
Okay, before I come to that, just looking at what my colleagues have said and putting everything together, I think when we talk of fraud in elections, political science terms, it may manifest in two scenarios: ballot fraud and procedural fraud. If you look at what the NDC is alleging, I think there's an element of both. There's allegation of procedural fraud. Before, at the national level, coalition level, what we call the strong room, all representatives of political parties must agree and certify results before the returning officer can declare. And I learned there were about 2 or 3 outstanding regions that the NDC representative never agreed on, and they never certified. So, on what basis then was the electoral commissioner declaring the results? So that's an allegation.
Yes.
So a procedure has been violated, and what is the impact of the abuse of that procedure to the outcome or the acceptability of the results? Then we also look at at the constituency level too. They said there were instances where people, results were overturned, or the declaration, there's agents didn't sign there too, but the declaration was done by just the returning officer at that level, and some few people without other members there to contest. So they are looking at
and even in TV3Live also, they are citing an instance where the results were declared without the contents of one ballot box.
Of one party. So there have been procedural abuses, but also ballot stuffing. They allege in some constituencies the results that was sent to the national level was quite different from what was agreed and compiled at the regional polling station constituency regional level. So if the figures are higher than what was agreed, it amounts to ballot fraud. There were 8 instances where ballots were being stuffed. That's also another allegation. And if you look at the Kodoyo report, the information at least a quite sizable number of those allegations that they have come across. So when you put all this together, is it outcome determinative or non-outcome determinative? Like my colleagues mentioned, if everything adds up and doesn't change the whole results, then it's not outcome determinative. Then we'll move on. If it's outcome determinative, then the judiciary or wherever we are seeking with this will not determine what the remedy should be moving forward. So I think from what we saw in 2012, you do not just rush to court. It's evidence. It's evidence based.
The name of the game. Yeah.
That's the name of the game. It's better to do the right thing than to hastily want to do the right thing.
On that note, let's hastily take a break. We'll come back and then you continue. I promise that Dr. Ali said. So you're still watching The Key Points. We're live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7. We will be right back to continue with other angles of development so far. Stay with us.
Sasso, baby, c'est pour me tonton frère. Sasso, baby, c'est pour me tonton frère. Edwana Joami nebu seshe. Yeah, Kasiane malaria. Minyami kone me sasso spray. Every mosquito starting run away. Sasso, me se come tonton frère. Sasso, e come tonton frère.
Introducing Nestle Milo All-in-One Nutrimix. The goodness of malt, milk and cocoa in Milo, and even more milk. Just add to water and enjoy the perfect cup of winning energy. Milo! This advertisement has been vetted and approved.
Smiles are one of the most important things we have. Globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Pepsodent with maximum cavity protection repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
With schools temporarily closed and students staying home, teachers at North Hills International School, the most preferred private school in Ghana, award recipients in 2018, continue to have constant interactive classes with our pupils while simulating classroom experience online. At North Hills International School, we adapt to change and we go the extra mile to make sure any investment made in your ward's education yields the best results. We admit students from preschool to junior high school. Our arms are open to welcoming your ward into our wonderful community. Call us today and let your child start a promising journey of global excellence with us. North Hills International School, climbing academic excellence.
The assurance that absolutely none can compare. The peace of mind that nothing could ever be better. The joy that comes with being free to be who you are. And the knowledge that where we're from can guide us to where we're going. Key, a tradition of smiles, a future that's bright. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
It's the festive season on TV3 Mentor, and the 9 remaining contestants will bring you good tidings in the penultimate round. Who among Snake, Ayayi, Nettie, Hindu, Abina Morgan, Kweku Bani, Light, Center Vocals, or Sementia would book a trip to the finals, and who will it end in tears for? Be part of the intriguing semi-finals of TV3 Mentor on Sunday 13 December at 8 p.m. live from TV3 Studio B. Studio attendance is strictly by invitation. Keep voting for your favorite contestant via the shortcode *713*13# or download the TV3 Mentor app from the Google Play or Apple App Stores. TV3 Mentor 2020. Own the stage. Mentor takes you higher.
Mentor is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kumba Fish Snack, Cocoa Expert, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, Enapa Foods, Shine Tomato Paste, Black Cologne from Pinaman Cosmetics, Deluxe Acrylic Paint.
Hey Ghana, our next episode of Family Feud is going viral for sure. See it first right here on TV3. Somebody ain't really drunk. And you drunk all the time. You better shut up.
Oh, okay.
That's your name?
That's my name.
My man. I'm finna give it to you. A lot of people drink in this audience. More alcohol.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 9 p.m. only on TV3.
Family Feud brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good. From deliberate mentorship of adolescent girls produces a responsible generation. That is why Because I Want to Be is brought to you by UNFPA, Rebecca Foundation, Canadian Embassy, Merck Foundation. Because I Want to Be shows Sundays at 1 p.m. on TV3.
Treatment of cancer can be very expensive, but there is great hope for Ghanaian teachers.
So, cancer is a deadly disease. It's a deadly disease because the treatment involves a lot of money. And so, if you don't have the wherewithal to undergo the treatment, you will die. But we, as teachers, we know that there is a remedy for us.
You bring along your payslip, and then you also bring along your NAT identity card. And once that is established, you are given the treatment free of charge.
Made possible by the collaboration between the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and the Sweden Ghana Medical Center, SGMC.
Some of our members still not aware that there is a facility like this here.
My wife also talked to her association, which is the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, and were attended to promptly.
If you're a Ghanaian teacher and a member of NAT, you enjoy absolutely free treatment of cancer.
If you are a member, your spouse stands to benefit if she happens to suffer the disease. Your daughter, your son also stands to benefit if she also happens to contract the disease.
Nat Hour, a documentary of hope for the Ghanaian teacher, shows Wednesdays at 5:45 p.m. and Sundays at 1:30 p.m. only on TV3.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to The Key Points live on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we are looking at the December 7, 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections, which just went by not too long ago, and its aftermath. A lot of issues have come up since Monday, 7th of December. We're looking at that. Just before the break, Dr. Ali Seidu was making his submissions. I'll go back to him for him to finish with that, and then we'll get on to other matters as well. But let me introduce to you Mr. Kwesi Jonah. He's joining us, and he is a senior research fellow with the Institute for Democratic Governance. Good morning, Mr. Jonah. It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Great. Yes, so Doc, over to you.
Okay. So I think I got to a point where I said it is not that easy to rush to court just because you want to satisfy your supporters. Yeah. What is important is getting prepared with enough evidence so that you can try to support the allegations that you have been making with evidence. In terms of the performance of the Electoral Commission, yes, I believe that I understand the Electoral Commission is a human institution and they make mistakes just like any other human institution, not even in Ghana, but even in developed democracies, they do make a lot of mistakes. If you look at the context within which this election was conducted, COVID-19 and all the restrictions and the things that has to do, and the pace at which people voted at the polling stations, it was quite encouraging, quite swift, and then quite good. So if you put all these things together, fine. They might have made some mistakes, but I think they deserve a lot of applaud for the manner in which the election was conducted.
Very well. Mr. Jonah, I would want you to come in now, and let's have your views on this. Currently, we're looking at the conduct of the polls so far, the procedural matters, and the basis for the NDC's questioning or refusal to accept the results, among others. Basically, let us understand how you have seen the process so far.
Okay. Now, the NDC has been complaining about so many things that happened at some polling stations and so on and so forth. I think the starting point for the Electoral Commission's conduct of polls at the constituency level is the recruitment of the people, and the close to 230,000 people who are recruited, you should all understand, are not permanent staff of the EC. These are people who are recruited temporarily just for the polls, and within a short time period, their services are dispensed with and they are paid off. Now, what the EC has tried to do to make the process acceptable to all parties is that they put the names of recruited personnel on the notice board for all parties to examine. If for any reason you think that there's a dubious character who has been recruited into the process and is likely to cause damage to the process, you have the right to object, and the EC will listen to the nature of the objection and act accordingly. So at that level, I'm saying this because of the one instance where somebody is supposed to have removed somebody's. Second, they go through a very rigorous training. The EC trains them for, I think they have even increased the number of days of the training. They go through a very rigorous training and then sign an undertaking not to misconduct themselves. So the process is improving. It's still possible to get a few bad nuts, like the one who was cutting heads. Who was cutting heads. But on the whole, the recruitment process went very, very well, and the conduct of the polls, this is a time where you have had probably the largest number of registered voters and the largest number of people turning out to vote. I understand the turnout is around 78%. This is one of the highest we have ever recorded. So you are dealing with so many people, and then COVID-19 and so on and so forth. Given the total, if you take the totality of the circumstances, I don't think they have performed very, very badly.
Very well. Dr. Osai Kwapong, let me come to you. I think we can move now into the emerging trends after the elections, you know. And key amongst the emerging trends obviously would be the voting, you know, skirt and blouse. So again, showing another level of sophistication of the Ghanaian electorate. And again, the number of incumbent MPs who lost their seats, that is also interesting to consider. What do you make of these developments? Let's start with these two, the voting skirt and blouse. Obviously, that is it's not peculiar to this elections, but I think we've seen some enhancement to it. And then the level of loss of incumbent MP seats. Let's hear from you on that.
Yeah, on the voting on skirt and blouse, I think, like you said, we've seen it a few times over the last couple of elections, but I don't think we've seen it on the scale that we saw it in the 2020 elections. And when you look at a number of days leading up to the election, at least there were some social media pages, in terms of some of my Facebook friends that I follow, that you could see them urging folks to actually go out and vote skirt and blouse. And so when I started getting a sense that perhaps it is also a message that others perhaps may be also pushing on the ground. And the election results seems to suggest that a lot of that activity went on and voters actually did do that. The first thing that struck me then was, you know, when you look at the presidential and you look at the parliamentary, I said to myself, perhaps the voter did not necessarily have an issue with retaining the incumbent government, which is, you know, retaining the president. And so whilst their preference was for President Nana Akufo-Addo serving at a second term, they had a very different idea of what they wanted to happen on the parliamentary side of things. It would still need some further probing, possibly to actually even go back to some of these voters to find out from them what actually drove that decision to really vote skirt and blouse. My two colleagues and myself at the Irish Research Group, we've actually just designed a post-election survey that at some point we hope we can deploy to get some answers to that. But it was quite instructive. And now the implications for that is the challenges that comes with in terms of governance once the second term rolls around, that you have, you know, the presidency controlled by a different party and parliament that close, even if it ends up being the 137 with one independent, that it poses some major governance challenges. And I think it will be very interesting to watch. I personally don't think that it would necessarily be a bad thing. Perhaps for once, because you tend to hear this narrative that the executive is too powerful, nobody gets to check executive power, parliament is weak, etc., etc. And maybe for the first time around, we may see a different kind of vigor emerging out of parliament in terms of its oversight and being able to check on the power of the executive. Now, on the question then of the number of incumbents who lost their seats, I'm not very surprised by that outcome. So, in fact, if you look at 2019, there was a research report done on Parliament by the University of Ghana Political Science Department. Yeah. And in there, you could see that the sentiments that the respondents in that survey were expressing were not very favorable to parliamentarians. Yeah, some of the issues that came up was the lack of development projects in their constituencies, the lack of constituency officers, how often they see their MPs. And it was very instructive to note on one of the questions where the respondents were asked, how many of you would vote to retain your current MP, that quite a number of them responded, no, I won't vote to retain my MP. The unfortunate outcome of that is when the report was made public, the response of MPs was to sort of push back the argument that, well, we are not development agents, and, et cetera, et cetera. Then if you also watch the MPP primaries and how many incumbents actually lost those primaries and some of the issues that emerged during the primary process and the post-primary issues as well, in terms of, well, then I'm aggrieved, I'm going to go independent, a candidate has been imposed on my constituency, etc., etc. I'm actually not surprised that particularly the New Patriotic Party suffered the kind of loss that it has suffered, because again, the signs were very clear that one, there was some anti-MP incumbent feelings emerging, and then if you combine that with how the primary processes worked out, I think it's really, for me, not surprising to have seen the parliamentary elections and the kinds of losses that incumbents suffered turn out the way it turned out.
Very well. Thank you for that, Dr. John Osakwapo. Leopold, let me come to you here. Still on the issue about the losses. How do you look at it and juxtapose that with, the roles or duties of persons or those MPs as maybe party executives or persons holding ministerial appointments, be it substantive ministers or deputies? Because you do notice that from the list, quite a number of them are deputy ministers.
That's right, yes, and I'll take it up from there. And ministers, a few ministers as well.
Exactly.
Yes. I think the idea may have been that the president needed to appreciate or show appreciation to the constituencies in which these deputy ministers were representing. And so that may have been the idea. But it has turned out, to be honest with you, to be counterproductive, sadly. Because as you have rightly put out, substantial number of the MPs who lost were rather deputy ministers or some few instances, ministers as well. And that is why I say that the Ghanaian voter is quite sophisticated. It's getting more sophisticated than we can credit them for. Because you would have thought that if you have a minister of state or a deputy minister, there's more likelihood that you'll be able to lobby and get you development more than the other person. And so why will you vote for a president and vote against the minister or deputy minister who may be a likely candidate for reappointment? And we need to look at that. But I also think that the voter now appreciates clearly the person in whom the Constitution has given the power to rule. And that's why sometimes I say that it's sometimes disturbing for me to hear MPP government or NDC government. It has never been like that. I mean, the executive power is vested in the president. And the people understand that. And that is why they don't see MPP being in government. Otherwise, they would have voted for the MPP candidate for president and the MPP candidate
as parliamentarian.
Look at the Amewu situation. They voted massively for Amewu, but they rejected the president almost by the same measure. You understand? So, even though they know that it is the president appointing him that has made him be even in the position to bring so much development, and understand there's a lot of development he has brought, the road construction and so, and they know that if they vote against the president, he may lose, and Amewu may not be in the position to bring this development, and yet they went ahead to rather vote massively for Amewu and massively against the president. And these are the things that I think Doctor and his friends, political science and Doctor, may have to go back to basics. You taught us, but we have gone beyond that. We have to go back respectfully and now analyze this situation, because for a person, I was surprised to hear from a student, doing law, that I advised my family, about 6 of us and myself, to vote skirt and blouse for the president, but against the MP. And I said, why? He has not brought any development to the area. But in other words, they see the president bringing development generally, but they expect the MP that in the constituency, he should ensure that there's development. So the Ghanaian voter doesn't want to know or hear that, oh, it's not my role as an MP to bring development to your area. Then they will as well not vote for you. Then why don't you step aside so that we give the opportunity to the assembly member or the district chief executive to develop the area? Why should we vote for you? Yes, technically and theoretically, you go to parliament, you fashion or you ensure that government policies are enacted in accordance with law, and they will push development to your area. I think that sometimes we import a lot of principles and ideas to our system without fashioning out to suit our current development. They expect development even from their chiefs. That is why in one...
So are you saying then that we should begin to look at the MPs as development agents?
No, I'm saying
even though we've continually tried to say that they are not, and so they themselves should know how they campaign and the kind of things they promise.
To the voter, that is theoretical. Because he thinks that, well, this is an MP. I mean, let me use an example. He's a teacher. He has a small reticle car. Within a few months, he now has a big car. V8. His house is now walled with beware of dogs. Also boldly inscribed on the door. So they see the MP's own life being changed drastically with development. So at the same time, you cannot then convince the constituent that, well, I am not a development partner. So, but I would like to conclude with this. So,
in 30 seconds, so I can...
There have been issues about the representation in Parliament.
Oh yes, we'll come to that, please. But let's do this bit about the emerging trends. And now, let me come to you, Dr. Ali Seidu here. Again, let's understand the nuances in here. You had Ms. Opon talk about all those things. That issue about MPs being development agents, the perception of MPs being development agents, and the fact that, yes, we have tried to suggest that, well, they are not. And so don't expect too much from them. And also the MPs know how you campaign. Don't go out there promising so much, because at the end of the day, that will be the yardstick against which you'll be measured. But obviously, it is appearing that constituents are refusing not to see MPs as development agents. That's what we are saddled with. The nuances in there, let us understand that, Dr. Ali Seidu.
Okay, thank you so much. I think basically it has to do with the lack of understanding of the proper function of a member of parliament. I don't think ideally it is the responsibility of the MP to build roads, build hospitals, and bring all the kind of developmental projects that his constituency will wish he or she is able to bring to them. Yes, I do agree that some MPs will overpromise in an attempt to win elections. And sometimes those promises will come a long way to hunt them. The MP can actually lobby and negotiate with maybe government and governmental agencies, civil society organizations, development partners to be able to help bring projects to their constituency. They can lobby their district chief executives and all those. So they have a kind of facilitatory responsibility in bringing the kind of big development projects that their people expect them to bring. With regards to the skirt and blouse or ticket splitting.
Which one is the skirt?
I think it's...
I'm still struggling to understand.
I think it's...
When you vote for the president, is that the skirt or the blouse?
Well, I think it's a Ghanaian balance. In Portugal, we call it ticket splitting.
Yes.
You split the ticket. But I think when you have a long dress, it means you are going for the same presidential, the same... But when you have a skirt, maybe the skirt could be one and
yellow.
Yellow
and then... The skirt is the MP.
One could be blue and then one could be green. So that kind of thing. I don't think this is the first time this pattern is emerging. If you go way back to even, maybe I'll start from 2012. I think we had more than 20 plus kind of ticket split voting. If you look at 2016, the same trend occurred. And it's not going to stop with the 2020 election. So people talk about voter sophistication and voters being rational, looking at what the MPs are able to bring or not able to bring. But if you look at the level of sophistication or rationality, it is in two forms. It's not just what you're able to bring generally. Yes, some voters will expect my MP is able to do this. That is the generic kind of anticipation or benefit that people will look at and vote. But some members of the constituency also look at it from the personal level. Do you understand? And there have been a lot of surveys, including one done by the PCN, which suggested that most people look at how you are able to dispense benefit to the person. Pay my school fees, attend my funeral, do this for me and do that for me, buy me mobile phone, give me money. And it is also rational because they believe that once I cast my vote, it may be very difficult to get my MP again. So this is also my cocoa season, quote and unquote. So people look at the level at which benefits or clientele benefits are dispensed to them at the personal level rather than at the border constituency level. And that increases the level at which monetocracy or the whole concept of spending and running monetary campaigns comes in. If you go to some of the polling stations, it was alleged that even on the voting day, people were still distributing money to change the climate of opinion on their favor. And we saw it strongly in most of the primaries that we did. So when you are looking at it, yes, on one breath, people are looking at the ability of their members of parliament to bring development, but also to represent their interests. So generally, that is the social kind of generic perception of development. And people can vote based on that. But the other also has to do with the personal benefit that comes to them. Fine, you might have done all the things that your people want you to do, but because somebody wanted school fees and you didn't give to him, then he said he will vote for you. You might have done all the things that they want you to do, but because of just a personal benefit. I'll give you one example. Tempani, our deputy AG. Okay. We went there before the elections. And look, even during the primaries, the constituency came together and said, no, let's not contest him. We should let him go. He has done well. He has been visiting, even to look at the position that he has been visiting his constituency regularly, but he lost. I still don't know why he lost. So it could not just be general issues of, in some other cases there were a little bit of conflict between maybe the PC and then the MP who lost in the primaries, the PC, and then the district chief executive who is also eyeing the seat, the PC, and then the general constituency. So some of these internal disputes and disagreements could also cause most of the MPs. But largely, I want to look at it from the individual benefit perspective, rather than just maybe on the generic.
Right. Mr. Jonah, to you, and then Bobby, I'll come to you. Just give me a few minutes. We can't talk about this and not mention the Fomena incident. Obviously, the Fomena MP may be the most important MP right about now.
Kingmaker.
Exactly, the kingmaker, yes. Looking at that, comes to mind the bit about internal issues, and then the primaries, ahead of the elections also comes in, and how that continually seems to affect parties, incumbent parties, because then there's this thing about imposing candidates on the constituents, which at the end of the day has a very telling effect at the national elections. And clearly Fomena has been one of such, because obviously the independent candidate, if he hadn't gone independent, would definitely, those votes that gave him the seat would have definitely gone to the NPP, and here we are at now currently. So your views on those internal challenges ahead of elections, and then the kind of consequences that we see.
The Fomena case is a clear illustration of one of the fundamental causes of skirt and blouse. Flawed primaries process. A primary process which is so corrupted that the right person doesn't get to win. And you get the point. The other person has been pushed onto the people. They have the right person is not favored by the gurus in the party, the leadership of the party. And they do everything to make sure that the wrong person, the person who is really popular with the people, doesn't get to win. And sometimes there's so much vote buying that the right person doesn't get to win. And it affects the party in two main ways. One, sometimes when a person has lost, he may not be as courageous as the former MP, Asiama, but he will campaign against
behind the scenes.
They continuously campaign against it.
Even more dangerous.
That is even worse.
Yes.
And Navrogo Central and Akotia, he will secretly campaign, seriously campaign, and they will lose the seat. But in the case of Fomena,
This guy was bold and courageous. The president even appealed to him. He said, I know I am popular and I can win. But the fundamental cause is the flawed primaries process where there's so much vote buying, where the powers that be support the wrong candidate. I think for the parties to end this cut and blouse voting, the party hierarchy should be very neutral and impartial. Look at the number of people, 62 or so, who were declared unopposed. And many of them did not decide to go unopposed. So this is, the formula is a clear illustration of how flawed primaries process affects skirt and blouse. But there's one little point also that I want to make.
Sure.
We have types of skirt and blouse voting. I mean, some people have asked which one is a skirt and which one is a blouse. But the Amewu case illustrates one type. They have voted for the MP, but not for the presidential candidate of that same party. The most dominant form is the one in which you vote for the presidential candidate, but not for the. That's the most dominant form of and the causes many. I mean, many of them have been discussed here, but the performance, people put so much emphasis on development. It is the there's a lack of balance. Two types of lack of balance. People become deputy ministers and ministers, and they pay so much attention to their ministerial job, they don't care about the people again. People go to parliament and they forget that they are representatives of the people. You should perform your representation. The people want you to come to them, to tell them what is happening. They don't. It is not always, they don't always see physical infrastructure development. No. A constituency is so huge. You do something in one village or town, the other towns don't have it. But the way in which the people realize that you are really representing them, you come to them, and so on and so forth, is very, very important. The moment you become deputy ministers and we get our V8, we forget about the people. So there's a lack of balance between our ministerial job and our parliamentary representative function, and if you're not ministers, there's a lack of balance between our parliamentary and then our other forms of parliamentary duties and our and this is what is causing the skirt and blouse.
Right, very well. I would want us to move on next to look at the numbers as they are playing out in Parliament so far, and the fact that perhaps we may be heading for a hang Parliament. That discussion has come up strongly during the course of the week. But before we go to that, Bobby, let's look at certain trends, if you like, that have remained in this election. Let's take Lejokuku, for instance. Let's take Adenta. Those have been stubborn constituencies. We know they never retain. And indeed, this time around, they've shown that, yes, we will not retain you for whatever reason. That is something that perhaps we need to get into to understand. But how did you see that?
Well, with the skirt and blouse scenario, you notice that it's almost always the party in power that suffers it most.
Definitely.
And you ask yourself why. Because when they're in the pole position, they don't suffer that. There's almost some form of unity when it gets to the primaries.
Sure.
When they are in opposition. but when it comes to once they are in power, then somebody must necessarily choose who must be there. And at that point, they think they are in power. So once they put the person on the ballot paper, then they can do whatever it takes to. But you see, the Ghanaian voters are becoming sophisticated. Yesterday, I had a chat with a taxi driver whom I picked from Kumasi. And I engaged him in these discussions. He gave me 3 examples. He told me he's an MPP man. But he mentioned 2 MPs. He said, if they get to the airport, they won't even allow you to hold their bag to help them go to their V8. Because they think if you do that, you expect 5 cedis. He told me he called 6 people in that constituency and told them not to vote for that MP. Because for the 4 years, he's been very arrogant. Then he told me an NDC MP who he didn't contest this time around. He stood down. He said the man, Mr. I think Collins Dauda, he said in his constituency, when he comes, the V8, when he's driving there, he picks all the farmers on the road. And so when they go, all they say is that, hey, and then Matno will come. And the man, he said if the man has stood 100 times, he would have won 100 times. Yes. Because he goes to home to say, when they pay school fees. He was telling me and I was shocked.
Humility.
And so you see that there is And you look at Ekumfi, the MPP MP lost. And that is the constituency they took the Ekumfi juice. I was there the weekend just before the election. And a woman told me...
They said the juice is different for the voting.
Exactly. And I was surprised. I engaged there. How is the election? At least here, you know that they brought 1D, 1S. Also, Masa, you're different. You're president, But you see, the MP felt that because he has brought development, people can see the 1D, 1F. That's enough for him. But the people also had different expectations. In terms of, like
that
Doctor has said,
connection.
they will need to have... In Kumasi, the man also told me that, listen, when it is before the premise, they attend, you know, in Ashanti region, funerals are a thing. They attend the funerals of even the relatives of delegates. Delegates who vote at the premise. So if a delegate's mother-in-law even is dead, those seeking their votes at the premise will attend and let their presence be known. After the premise, if it is a known party member in the vicinity, they will not even show up. They will only send their contribution. And those are some of the things that the MPs keep repeating these mistakes. And you wonder how, because in Adenta, this year, there was a lot of development in Adenta. Roads and everything. And I was quite surprised because I saw it. And you would think that, okay, at least these roads have not been done for years. There have been problems with water supply. Right. In the last 2 years, people are having the water, the roads are done. So you think that the MP will get, but they said no. You are more interested in party issues.
But you do realize that also in that area, there was the huge thing about the footbridges.
Yes.
Remember, there was a long period
which were done.
They were done, but not after a lot of protests.
But that is
which is not many lives have lost.
With some deaths.
Yes. So it's a combination of the people expecting development and also expecting the personal touch. Now, lastly, if you look at Dr. Okoboy's scenario, I still don't understand how he lost. Because when it comes to personal touch,
he had it.
You see him there almost every weekend, to the extent that he was personally with hammer and nail doing footbridges.
But during the homo war,
exactly.
That is what somebody told me. So I was asking the guy who lives there, he said, listen, homo war is not go area. Once you touch it, forget it. And so you see that it's a combination.
So you see, right there, Mr. Jonah, right there, you have an issue with the MP who is a deputy minister for health.
And doing well.
Trying to ensure that the health of the public is, is kept intact for that matter. And so trying to say that, put this on hold, and, maybe the next homo season, we can do this. And he suffers for that. So it's a very...
But you see, Abena, in this country, during the COVID, a lot of rallies were held, chiefs were installed,
but
a lot of things happened.
I do appreciate that, but the homo was in the stages.
He's a deputy and reprobate.
Yes, well that's true. But Mr. Jonah, in such an instance, what is an MP to do? Because then you definitely, people who are watching this would be guided in the future. If there's a certain festival coming up and that even poses a risk to public health, they'll be like, well, who am I to go and say that? See what happened in Lejukuku. So let me just keep quiet and let
I think the choice here was between being a rational medical doctor and a proper traditional girl.
Very well.
That's a good one. That's a conflict.
Very well.
So you have to decide.
Strike a balance.
Yes, you have to decide. I'm a medical doctor. I went to medical school. I know this. That one doesn't matter at the traditional. The homo war is more important. So the thing to do is, okay, I know you want to do this festival. What's the safest way to do it?
Social distancing.
In order not to put lives at risk.
Right.
So you sit down with the traditional people. If you really want to be a proper traditional guy, you sit down with the Manche and the Willem and so on and so forth to decide. That is why he went wrong.
Right. Very well. We have just about maybe 12 minutes to go. Let's use that to look at the development in Parliament and what the outlook looks like. Let me start with you, Dr. Osai Kwapong. So currently we have NPP 137 seats, NDC 136, and then the independent one in Fomina, with Sine West outstanding. If it goes in a favor of NPP, that's 138. that wouldn't be a huge majority to jubilate over, really and truly. And if it goes in favor of the NDC, then you have 137, 137, and then that is, that would be very interesting. Now, so let us understand what we are looking at and how we can deal with that. What are the options? Let's look at the scenarios that could, play out in Parliament come January 2021.
Right. So let's say the MPP picks up that one seat, then it's 138, 136, and then one independent. If the NDC, and so it's a one-seat majority, but then, quote unquote, you claim I've won the majority in Parliament. I would then, I'm sure that the Formina MP would. My guess is that he's more likely to caucus with the NPP because that's his home, that's his party, although there were some issues post the primary, but I'm suspecting that he would still caucus with the NPP, so that gives them 139 seats. Or maybe he would even formally go back to the party and then, he becomes an MP, so that's 139, 136. If it's 137, 1 because he still wants to remain independent, that also creates a different scenario. But for me, then the implications that I'm looking at is what it does to the president's agenda and the kinds of things that needs legislative approval to go through. It could, some have said this is really a recipe for gridlock, nothing would get done, the NDC would give the executive quite a lot of headaches, etc., etc. You can also look at a more positive scenario. For me, the outcome that I am hoping for, and I mentioned this in my earlier comments, is that we've often talked about how, I've heard people use words like, an imperial presidency and the executive is too strong, Parliament is weak, Parliament can't do anything, etc., etc. For me, I'm looking at whether this actually presents Parliament with an opportunity to really demonstrate that it has, that ability to be able to put a check on the executive, offer some, the kind of oversight that we've never seen, right?
Very well.
That maybe for once you would actually see that,
in Parliament
exercise that. So for me, that's what I'm really looking forward
Very
to.
well. Thank you for that. Bobby, now the president in his speech after the declaration, obviously gauging the environment, knew where we were headed. And so this is what he had to say of the situation. He says the people of Ghana have made it loud and clear that the two parties must work together, especially in Parliament. Do you think that is what the people of Ghana, were trying to put across? That yes, we want you to work together, or that maybe that is, if you like, an unintended consequence of a certain dislike for certain members of Parliament?
I think that it was the unintended, yes. And I wouldn't have expected the president not to have that, for lack of a better word, reconciliatory approach. Because, I heard the Deputy Attorney General, after they had their first high-level executive meeting in the course of the election, say that it's 137, 137. I heard him say that with the independent vote. So they may have considered that it's 137, 137. Yeah. And I've heard people say that they are very sure Mr. Isiama would go for the MPP. I think that it's not something we should
take for granted.
We should take for granted. He is not that kind of person. Trust me, he is not.
Especially when prior to the elections, the president said
when the president told him to step down, he said he won't step down. Yeah. So what makes you think that he would just give their votes for? No, he knows that he owes a responsibility to his people, and he will take the best decision for his people. And it's good because it's a true test of how we have matured as a country democratically.
Right.
And so you would see whether or not the MPP, the NDC, because as it stands now, they seem to be in a position to frustrate the government. And if they also take it for granted and take an entrenched position and it becomes obvious that they are intentionally frustrating government business, they will become
unpopular as well.
They'll become unpopular because you see, they had 6.2 million votes plus.
That's huge.
It is not all the 6.2 million voters who are died in the heart NDC supporters.
Sure.
Like you said,
more than half or not.
More than half are not. People are becoming sophisticated.
Sure.
So we voted you, we gave you a certain number in parliament to make sure that you properly scrutinize government policies and bills and laws and everything for the greater good.
Very well.
If you intentionally frustrate government business,
frustrate you
it's also about, and they will be punished so that Ghanaians would agree that, listen, let us not give any party the opportunity to frustrate the presidency. Because at the end of the day, we want development.
Right.
And if this hung parliament will not result in development, we will not have it again.
Right. We go back to the overwhelming majority situation. Very well, Mr. Opong, your thoughts on this? It's a very interesting situation about to happen.
It is indeed, and I fully agree with Bobby. But I think one aspect that people have made references to, which I think is not grounded in law, is about the choice of speaker, for example. I mean, the standing orders don't stipulate that only the persons with majority should choose or nominate a speaker. I mean, the portion I have here, for example, gives each person the opportunity to nominate a speaker, and if only one is nominated, whether from this side or that side, then there will be no vote. But if, remember, during Alajete's time, Alajete was MPP man who had come to parliament, but the NDC rather nominated him, and Sechi Hughes was rather favored after an election. So it is not a straightforward matter that once you have majority, you determine who should be the Speaker of Parliament. And also, with the formula, I think he is more likely to go MPP than NDC because
most of the people who voted for
him, yes, and if MPP want to be smart, and I think they will, the pressure should rather come from the voters in that constituency to put additional pressure on him, because one, he cannot join any political party at this stage. There will be vacancy. He may just declare at the beginning which of the caucuses he wants to be part of, either MPP or NDC, and declare that usually he will be voting. But even talking about that, I think our parliament should let us now know that they must not always vote in favor of the government or always vote against the government, depending on where they stand.
Right.
And that is a problem.
Very well.
This is what the people of Ghana have asked them now. We want to now see you pursuing the agenda for your constituency, and not necessarily because we don't apply the whip system as it pertains in the UK.
The lawyers have spoken. I have the political scientists to go to. How does this all play out within our political space? Mr. Jordan.
Yeah. Now, for some people, it's not a bad idea that all the complaints that we have been making about the excessive executive control of the legislature is going to end, because now you have a very balanced parliament. But I think the situation can be resolved in a very, very simple way. One simple way of resolving this crisis is for the president to get into negotiations with the other side to form a government of national unity.
Is that feasible, looking at how partisan our space is?
Hang on. Don't forget. If to try and negotiate a government of national unity, it's not going to be easy. There's so much hard feelings on the other side right now that the hardliners will say that, no, leave them. You show them where power lies and so on and so on. But I think that's why I use the word negotiation.
It's worth giving it a try.
It's worth giving it a try. I mean, I can foresee the Fomena guy, in spite of all the humiliation that he's gone through, deciding that I'll join the MPP caucus in Parliament. But I think it will be in the interest of democracy and the nation as a whole for the government to try and see if it is possible to negotiate some kind of government of national unity.
So give ministerial appointment.
Yes.
They suffered.
Well,
to negotiate. That way, Parliament will. I mean, you cannot vote again. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, but it's worth trying. And it will be an interesting time to watch in Parliament. Dr. Ali Sedi, kindly let us have your thoughts.
I think what this may help us do is to sharpen our negotiation and bargaining and
Westminster style.
skills. Yes. So I think we'll gradually, maybe for the first time, we're moving away from the majoritarian parliamentary decision-making process to a more consensus body-oriented. So one party doesn't have to work out for another to still go.
No.
Definitely, you have to consult.
Sure.
And I believe in the consultation, the Ghanaians and the citizens will benefit from that process than where majority always have their way.
Right. Maybe this is where we've all been yearning to get to, and it's finally here. Who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But let me say thank you to my first panel. And it's been comprised of Mr. Kwesi Jonah, Senior Research Fellow, Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG, also Bobby Banson, he's a private legal practitioner. We've had Dr. Ali Duseidu, Senior Lecturer, Department of Political Science, University of Ghana, Mr. Yawapong, private legal practitioner, and via Zoom, we were joined by Dr. John Osai Kwapong, Democracy and Development Fellow, CDD Ghana. Let me say a big thank you to you all, gentlemen. It's been a great time and it's been very productive. Thank you so much. We'll take a break. When we come back, we go into the security dynamics around the elections. And do remember, this is a key point. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you so much.
Delivered 2 healthy kids last night.
Congrats. Have you heard?
2 kids.
You get free calls from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. for 6 months when you make an Airtel Tigo money transaction on new Airtel Tigo Sames.
My son has 2 kids. I go see. No. Now you just saw almost 7.
For all your lengthy conversations, get a SIM today. Yes, so I'm still talking.
Smiles are one of the most important things we have. Globally, 1 in 2 children suffer from cavities. Pepsodent with maximum cavity protection repairs tiny holes before they become cavities. Because every smile matters.
The clapping of our hands, tapping of our feet, and slapping of our skin continue to increase as our full attention has been shifted to COVID-19. While the mosquitoes grow wings in our households and are flying in our environment, while we observe the protocols to curb the COVID-19 pandemic by washing our hands with soap, using alcohol-based hand sanitizers and disinfectants. Wear mask always if you are infected or not, and ensuring social distancing. Let's also drive away malaria, which slowly raised our hope by using Roma insecticide spray and mosquito coil. Roma in Tum Tum Master.
Introducing Nestle Milo All-in-One Nutrimix. The goodness of malt, milk and cocoa in Milo, and even more milk. Just add to water and enjoy the perfect cup of winning energy.
Milo!
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by
Third Eye Care and Vision Center is here with all your eye care solutions. Yes, Third Eye Care is at it again. Are your lenses becoming foggy because of wearing face masks or sitting in air-conditioned spaces? Are your eyes getting sore and tired after using the computer for prolonged periods? Are you struggling with light from oncoming cars and other vehicles when driving at night? Worry no more. Third Eye Care and Vision Center has all the right solutions for you. We have anti-fog and blue filtering lenses that solves it all. Third Eye Care and Vision Center also stocks all types of lenses, designer frames, sunglasses, and employs very well-trained, qualified, and licensed optometrists to provide all your eye care needs. Locate us at Airport Residential Area, close to the Association International School, opposite Mirage Residence, or Northridge, on the premises of Sunny FM, and close to the Kanda Overhead Bridge. Call us on 054-328-7008 or 026-646-2080. Third Eye Care and Vision Center, your total eye care solution.
It's the festive season on TV3 Mentor, and the 9 remaining contestants will bring you good tidings in the penultimate round. Who among Snake, Ayayi, Nettie, Hindu, Abina Morgan, Kweku Bani, Light, Center Vocals, or Sementia would book a trip to the finals, and who will it end in tears for? Be part of the intriguing semi-finals of TV3 Mentor on Sunday 13 December at 8 p.m. live from TV3 Studio B. Studio attendance is strictly by invitation. Keep voting for your favorite contestant via the short code *713*13# or download the TV3 Mentor app from the Google Play or Apple App Stores. TV3 Mentor 2020. Own the stage. Mentor takes you higher.
Mentor is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kumba Fish Snack, Cocoa Expert, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, and Napa Foods, Shine Tomato Paste, Black Cologne from Pinaman Cosmetics, Deluxe Acrylic Paint.
Catch the grand finale of the Best Planet Golden Goal competition to find out who wins the sleek Mercedes-Benz live on TV3 on Saturday, 12 December 2020 at 8 p.m.
It's our industry and we protect it to make it better.
The finest entertainment pundits here in Ghana with in-depth knowledge of the entertainment industry.
Do not politicize the face of our entertainment industry because it is not just for fun. It is a lot of hard work. I mean, loads of hard work.
We applaud, analyze, criticize, and update you on the happenings in showbiz here in Ghana and beyond.
There's a reason we speak to the arts and culture. The day we lose grip of that narrative, we are doomed.
This is Simply Showbiz. We set the agenda with blunt analysis of the arts and entertainment industry.
Because it's our passion. My name is Bulldog.
My name is Kwame Ajimaibeko.
I am Whitney Boachimensa.
My name is Anoda Samabe.
My name is Ms. G. Join my pundits and I right here on TV.
Simply Showbiz shows Saturdays at 11 a.m. on TV3.
It's Saturday on National Genius Challenge.
Ave Maria School in Dansuman, representing Taifa, also in the Greater Accra region. Shalom School Complex. And last but not the least, our history makers, because their school was the very, very first winner of the National Genius Challenge. Bishop Bauer School from Latibia-Okosi. What's another name for relief rainfall? Is the right answer. Brought to you by
Best Western Premier Hotel, Bayport Savings and Loans, Bright Schools, Hisons, Institute of ICT Professional Ghana, Prospectus Ghana Limited,
MJC Foods, Anasco Skills and Digicom Engineering Limited, Extra Class.
Supported by
The National Juniors Challenge shows every Saturday at 2 p.m. on TV3.
16 families, cooking enthusiasts, fun games, and a prize pool of over 100,000 Ghana cedis all in one show. Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition is finally here. With Onga, even friends can become family. Which family will season their way to the final, and which family will fall on the battlefield? 2 seasoned chefs and a host of celebrated guest judges will sift through finger-licking Ongalicious recipes in their quest to determine the winner of Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition. Which family walks away with the ultimate cash prize of 20,000 Ghana cedis plus a set of kitchen appliances from Kaiser Kitchenware, which includes a freestanding cooker, a heat extractor, and a refrigerator. Or second prize of 15,000 Ghana cedis plus a Kaiser fridge. Or third prize of 10,000 Ghana cedis plus a Kaiser microwave. Oh, by the way, no one goes home empty-handed. It's the biggest cooking show to hit your screen. Ongalicious Ghana Cooks Family Battle Edition. Do it with your family. Onga, Mama's Helping Hand, Ilele.
Showing on TV3 every Saturday at 4:30 p.m.
Sasso, baby, se come tonton preko. Sasso, baby, se come tonton preko. Edwana Dramini Buseshe. Yeah, Asia ne malaria. Minyami kwa ne mesa so spray. Every mosquito starting run away. Tonton preko, saso saso, me se come tonton preko. Tonton preko, saso e come tonton preko.
Introducing Nestle Milo All-in-One Nutrimix. The goodness of malt, milk and cocoa in Milo, and even more milk. Just add to water and enjoy the perfect cup of winning energy.
This advertisement has been vetted and approved by
At 2HB Home Decor, we have long-lasting, fantastic furniture for every room. 2HB Home Decor deals in customized kitchens, sofa, dining, security doors, bedroom sets, interior design. For your complete comfort in your home and exclusive designs with elegant touch, you have to contact 2HB Home Decor. Locate us on the Spintex Road, plot 77, opposite Snyder Motors, near the New China Mall. Call us on 0201 431841 or 0202 042052. Visit our website at 2hbhomedecor.com. 2HB Home Decor. Our name is the promise of standard and quality.
Welcome back. You're still watching and listening to the key points right here on TV3, also on 3FM 92.7 and online at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 Ghana. So we're moving on next to look at security assessment of the 2020 polls. How did that go? You do know that in the course of the period, a number of incidents were reported, skirmishes here and there, but all in all, we pulled through safe and sound. In the studio with me to have this conversation, from my extreme left, we have Dr. Ishmael Norman. He is the president of the Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies. Next to him, we have COP Bright Odro. He is a former Director General of the CID Police Service. We will, before we go into this conversation, we'll take some recap of things that happened in the course of the week. A shooting incident at Ablikuma, for instance, is one of the things we'll be looking at. So let's take a look at that video and then come back in studio.
The atmosphere at the Ablikuma Central Constituency Coalition Center was tense and degenerated to violence. A day after the confusion, which resulted in 30 presiding officers running for cover with 30 pink sheets. The confusion led to 30 presiding officers running for cover with 30 pink sheets.
When the incident happened, those who were scared and they were fleeing to save themselves got injured, and they took the pink sheet, that is a statement of proof, to their various houses. And because of that, we needed the statement of proof to be able to collate our results and afterwards declare. About 3-4 of them told us, due to what has happened, there was no way they could come to the collation center because their injury was that severe. And we have to drive to their various houses to collect the statement of proof.
The returning officer finally made the declaration.
By the power invested in me as the returning officer for the Electoral Commission of Ablikuma Central, I hereby declare Abdulatif Gan
The MP-elect said he will ensure unity in his constituency.
I believe in unity. I'll make sure that I unite the constituency.
Right, so that was a report concerning the shooting incident at the Ablikuma Central constituency, but that was just one of a number of incidents that happened. Indeed, the police issued a statement and indicated that about 61 incidents had happened, but those bordering on electoral violence were 6. They indicated them here, and that included the Central Region, Ewutu-Senya East constituency. In the Greater Accra region, obviously, what we just saw, Ablekuma Central was one of them, and then there was the Ododo-Dio constituency incident. There was also Bono East region, where specifically at the Techiman South constituency, some incidents of shooting occurred, leading to the deaths of 2 people and injuries of 4. Northern region in Savelugu constituency, a shooting incident, and that was by a civilian at the police station, where it says when people besieged the station during post-election period on 8 December 2020. So all in all, the police indicate that 5 people have been reported dead and a number of injuries as well. COP, let me start with you. What do you make of everything that has transpired so far? We started off, the pre-election period. We had been informed by the election task force that some 6,000 plus flashpoints had been identified, and so obviously there was a lot of concerns about the possibility of violence erupting in all of these places. We went into the elections, and this is what the police is telling us. Your assessment of the security situation.
Thank you, and good morning to your viewers. I think the security preparations were quite okay. The police identified some flashpoints, about over 6,000 flashpoints, and then I think they beefed up security in those flashpoints. If you look at where these incidents occurred, these acts of lawlessness occurred, you see some collation centers. I'm sure it's the constituency collation centers where some of these shooting incidents took place. I don't believe that the police factored in that these collation centers could be flashpoints because in the past, I don't think we have identified any collation center as flashpoint, even though there are some skirmishes that take place at collation centers, like what we saw. So maybe going forward now, it's only the polling stations that we tag or identify as flashpoints. So going forward now, I think we will look at collation centers as well. Even though I know police presence is heavy at collation centers, but whether there was additional arrangement to prevent or to forestall the occurrence of some of these acts of lawlessness, I don't think we factored in that some of these cooling centers were going to create problem for us. And as I said, going forward, we need to also factor that in. We need to do or put in additional security measures in the future so that we can prevent some of these things.
Right, but just a follow-up to that, wouldn't it or shouldn't it have been as a matter of course to think that collation centers could very well be a hot spot, given what we know of collation centers, that some of the most intense arguments or altercations actually play out in collation centers? Yeah,
I said police presence or security presence at collation centers have always been very heavy because when the counting is done at polling station, all the police personnel move to the collation center, and so the presence of police or the presence of the security is quite heavy at collation centers. But whether or not we thought that shooting incidents were going to occur at collation centers is also another thing. That is why I'm saying that even though the presence of the security was heavy or always has been heavy at collation centers, we should have maybe put in more put in more effort to forestall shooting at some of these collation centers. Maybe additional security arrangements should have been made to forestall any attempt to maybe cause trouble at collation centers. So as I said, we always identify polling stations as flashpoints, but we have never tagged collation center as flashpoint. So going forward, with these incidents, going forward, those areas or those centers where we had these problems will, of course,
get onto the list of flashpoints.
And then additional security arrangement made to contain any act of lawlessness.
Very well. Thank you for that, COP. Dr. Norman, your general assessment of the polls, that security-wise.
Sure. Thank you very much, Abena. I think COP Odro is very correct that the police approach to security in this country, in many African countries, is often reactionary. Rather than thinking of the unthinkable, they wait till an event happens, then they develop the protocol for the next event. That shouldn't be the modern policing methodology. The modern policing methodology is to anticipate, dream of all the possible situations that could go wrong. And then you plan towards that. And I know that it's going to take a systemic paradigm shift within the police organization to actually move into a situation where they can combine proactivity and reaction so that they can confront situations better. And as COP Odro retired actually said, knowing the importance of pink sheets, particularly with regards to the previous election petition at the Supreme Court, I think that should have been part of the collaboration of the police force in terms of what could happen. This is the gem of the election, and so you have to protect that gem. So I think in the future, as I have proposed on this station just last week, or is it like this week, that within 100 meters of polling stations, coalition centers, nobody should carry a gun except the security forces. And they should put in screening devices. So anybody entering the coalition center should be screened for knife, for whatever weapon that they have on them.
Sure.
And I think if we do this, then we can have more sanity with respect to the numbers. I'm quite surprised that the officials at the coalition center, Ablekuma Central, took the pink sheets to their houses. What could have happened? I'm not saying that anything happened, but what could have happened? And that's the question, lingering question at the back of my mind, and it's quite bothersome. I think also that the police officers on duty at the coalition centers, not just the police officers, but the election task force, they should be given tasers so that if you don't feel like you can't shoot a person below the belt, try and tase a person. And once you mobilize a person, you can easily put the person in handcuffs and arrest the person. Altogether, I think we were going towards a very beautiful election process. And then mistakes started to happen. And those mistakes are the ones that we have to watch out for, because we cannot accept these kinds of mistakes because some of them were avoidable. For example, the EC herself, the commissioner herself, a very good lawyer, experienced lawyer, very seasoned in election matters, coming out to read and then later on correcting your own figures. That creates element of doubt. And it should be reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, that the figures are correct. So it's human institution. Mistakes are made. I don't think there was any intentional desire on her part to deceive the public, because she was really prepared to do a very beautiful event. Unfortunately, man proposes and God disposes.
And definitely the optics wasn't good looking at that comeback. Yes, but you talk about tasers, Dr. Norman, and I would want you to come in here as COP Bright-Odro. Some have said, indeed I've received a text message here from a colleague who is saying that, I mean, looking at some or watching some of the videos, it would seem as though perhaps the police or the security forces should have resorted to the use of tear gas or rubber bullets rather than using, the live bullets, which in some instances caused injuries and, if not deaths. So what do you make of that? Because Dr. Norman is talking about tasers. Obviously, tasers come in to, give a certain effect, not necessarily, permanent damage or harm.
I think the shooting incident, I think there was one shooting incident that involved the security personnel. I don't know whether it's the military or the police that fired, but you see, the police deployed at polling stations were not armed. those that were deployed at the police station proper were not armed, so they couldn't have fired at the polling station. As I looked through the list here, it's 2 or 3 collation centers that the firing took place, and one of them, I think, was done by a security personnel. I think, but I don't know whether, as I said, I don't know whether it's a police or military. The police don't go there with guns.
That's the Bono East region in Techiman South constituency,
the
but security personnel, that's what the police say,
yeah,
security personnel. They don't say who exactly,
The police don't normally go there with weapons. We don't deploy the police to polling stations, collation centers with weapons. But of course, the patrol teams have weapons in their vehicles. And so if they move in to quell maybe some lawlessness or some violence, they may fire warning shots. In this particular instance, I think the shooting was done, and 2 people were killed also at Zablikuma. Or
the Techiman South constituency, two were killed.
Doctor talked about tasers, and you also spoke about rubber bullets. I don't know whether they had this in their vehicles and didn't use them. Because normally in situations like this, we don't fire live bullets. But there are officers, or there are some officers, police officers, who are among the patrol teams who are armed, so that when the situation gets out of hand, maybe they may resort to the use of proper firearms.
Right. Now, so far, the police pegged the number of deaths at 5. So 5 people have been reported dead. Question is, could these deaths have been avoided, Dr. Norman?
Definitely, the deaths should have been avoided and could have been avoided. I am quite surprised and disappointed that when people are trying to express their civil liberties, that they end up dying, and that is the ultimate denial of civil liberty. So I think that in the future, again, we have to think about the future. Unfortunately for the dead people, my heart goes out to them, that we should do everything possible to ensure that we don't do this, we don't repeat this. I will, if you permit me, suggest that a monument should be erected in the name of those fallen Ghanaians for just wanting to express their civil liberties, wanting to defend the Constitution as enunciated in Article 3 of the 1992 Constitution. I think that it should be a reminder to everybody, the politicians, the voters, that never again is truly never again. Because just as we erected a statue for Captain Mahama, we should do that for these people, because they are the true patriots. I'm not saying that Captain Mahama wasn't a patriot, but these are the true patriots who believe in the sanctity and the democracy of this country. And I think the political parties should take this suggestion on, not because it's coming from me, but it will be the right thing to do.
Right. Perhaps another thing that would also ensure that we don't do these things is to ensure that the persons who perpetrated these acts are brought to book.
Most definitely.
Bringing into question the bit about how prosecutions are going to go and all of that. Indeed, the police, when we spoke to them earlier on in the week, indicated, Madam Sheila Abaye Bachman did indicate that a number of arrests had been made and they intend to go ahead with the prosecutions. Your thoughts on that?
It's very important to conduct investigation into this. We said there were about 61 incidents of those skirmishes also, but 6 were quite serious, and that involved death to innocent civilians. So it is important we conduct investigations so that we come out with good conclusions about what actually happened. And from investigation, we will be able to know what caused these issues, what caused these problems. And then maybe a blueprint will be developed by the police so that it will serve as a guide for future police deployment plan. It is very important, because if we leave things like that, I don't think it will help us going into the future.
Right, but oftentimes what happens is, yes, right about now, it is quite topical because of the climate or the times we're in. But give it a few weeks, a few months, then we forget about it. We wouldn't know as civilians, we wouldn't know whether indeed these cases are seen to their logical conclusions or that they are, cut off at some point. So what would you urge on the police service, to do to ensure that we are kept up to date, the people of Ghana are kept up to date regarding this? Because obviously this is an important thing. We would want to see some logical conclusion brought to bear.
I think you are right. I think the public deserves to know the outcome of this investigation so that they also follow and then give in their inputs as well. And I think there should be pressure on the police to come out and tell us what they have done, so that we see to the logical conclusion of these cases.
Right. Now, again, looking at the incident as specified by the police, Dr. Norman, I believe we touched on this earlier on, but we'll still need to look at it. The 6 incidents that have been specified here in Greater Accra region, or the Dudu and Ablekuma Central, the Central region talking about Ewutu Senya East constituency, the Bono East region, specifically Techiman South constituency, the Northern region, you're talking about Savelugu constituency. In fact, Savelugu constituency had 2 different incidents occurring involving 1 death and some injuries as well. But what's striking is that all of them, except for 1, involved civilians who were doing the shooting.
There are a few things that this country needs to confront. The right to bear arms is guaranteed by the Constitution, no doubt about that. But that right needs to be controlled. So there should be a law that controls the use and the right to carry a concealed weapon. We must pass a law to restrict where you can display you can carry your weapon to. Because if we don't do that, we will end up with a situation where, as we have seen in the United States, where an aggrieved worker goes to the office with a gun and shoots down the boss for reprimanding him or her, for querying him or her, and we've seen that quite a few times. Workplace violence actually are perpetrated. The weapon of mechanism of injury is always coming from a gun, not a knife. Women do it, men do it. So we need to pass a law to restrict the places where we can take our concealed weapon. I have been to meetings, as I said before, here in this country, government offices, where very serious issues are being discussed. And somebody opens a briefcase and you see a concealed weapon. And you sit there and say, oh my God. Once I was at a meeting, a university meeting, where a colleague who was very angry with a lot of people on the faculty had actually come to a retreat with a Beretta loaded with extra machine gun.
Wow.
I was shocked. And he was very angry. I had to talk me down, try to engage him in all the activities that we were having. And maybe a few weeks later, he committed suicide. But his intention, he was an ex-soldier, and his intention was to actually waste a few people. It was very scary.
Clearly,
so that's one of the things we need to do. In terms of adding on to COP Bryce's contribution, in terms of trying the perpetrators of this crime, the civilians, just as we did to Ayawaso West Wagon, I am pleading with our justices. They should use this opportunity to educate the electorate. They should have it televised so that we know that this is actually happening. Because if we secret it away, we will not see the end of it. If they are, I suspect, these people are not ordinary people. They are not ordinary voters. They are probably muffed members of a vigilante group.
Well, let's not speculate.
I'm speculating. I have to. As a security analyst, I have to speculate. And because how would they get the gun?
So that's why the police definitely would need to call on them to expedite, work on this in terms of the investigations. Then we would know who is, in up for prosecution. Then they'll have their day in court. You go to court, trial proceeds and everything. And then if they're guilty, found guilty. If not, they're gone. But you do know that at least it would have gone through the due process of law. And ultimately, that is what we're looking at. COPG, you want to say something?
Yeah, it's important that we do the investigations because we want to know who were behind these shootings.
Sure.
I think most of the shootings were done by civilians, not even the security personnel. So we need to investigate, find out who did this, why they did it, where they did it, how, so that if we have answers to all this, then as I said, we could also have some blueprint to guide us in the future. Right.
And the guns they use, whether or not they are licensed, do they even have the requisite permits to use those guns, and all of those questions coming up?
To add up to, the doctor was saying we need to have some laws regarding where you should take guns and where you should not take guns. You know, I think there are some laws, but then the law, for example, the law on unlawful discharge of firearm, and then law on maybe pulling a gun on somebody. I think it's threat of death or threat of harm. Those things are there, but whether they are sufficient enough is another thing.
Right. To give some perspective to the discussions we are having, let's take some videos from Techiman in the Bono East region during the elections, where a number of incidents occurred. We have this video to depict exactly what we're talking about. So let's take a look. If it's ready, please, let's have it roll. Right, so those were scenes from Techiman in the Bono East region, and indeed these are confirmed reports. The police issued a press statement and indicated that this incident did happen, leading to the death of 2 persons and the injuries of 4 persons. And this happened at the Collation Center during post-election period on 8th December 2020. That's the Techiman South constituency. Indeed, eyewitness reports indicate that there may have been more fatalities and injuries, but that would be confirmed subsequently. So this is what happened in Techiman South constituency at the at the Collation Center on the 8th of December 2020. So indeed, what we're speaking of is real and indeed did happen. COP Bright Ojo, looking at the video that we just saw, seriously bringing to test the police's skill in crowd control or crowd management. And we have been discussing some issues here. But looking at the video, what do you make of it?
I think we allowed the civilians to come too close to the Collation Center, like Doctor said. And I think the planning here was not quite appropriate. Because how can you see so many people converge at a Collation Center like this? And you could see the melee, the confusion. And I think the only way to disperse them, to pull them away, probably was to fire some few gunshots.
But they would say, the parties would say that indeed, and not just the parties, but given the transparency, the needs for transparency and participation, you would expect that people would have to be present at the Collation Centers to see what happens. And so it can't be that there won't be a congregation of people.
Well, there could be congregation of people. People should see, but I think they should be at some bay. They should be made to stand maybe some meters away from where the collation is being done. For me, I don't even understand. Collation Center is just to collect the results from the polling station. So you just you just add up, and then you announce whoever wins the parliamentary election at the constituency or Collation Center.
So you think the Collation Center should see less chaotic scenes like this, rather as compared to the polling stations where the ballots are being counted?
The ballots are being counted. That is
sorted and counted, actually.
And that is why I said the police have always believed that the flashpoints are at the polling station, because after counting and then the announcement being made about the results of the polling station, somebody disgruntled can snatch the ballot box from there, and that can create problems. So that is why probably we have always identified polling stations as the points where we have flashpoint. But for Collation Center, I don't know why they all went there and what they intended to get, because we are only adding up.
The parties were actually calling on their supporters to mass up at Collation Center, so perhaps they heeded to the call of their leaders.
The firing, I think, was necessary, but I think it was overdone. You could hear so many a lot shootings going on there, and I think it was overdone. And like tasers, pepper spray, and rubber bullets. But how many of these things do we have? How many of maybe water tankers do we have in the system? And how many of them could be maybe deployed outside? So these are some of the problems. And nobody emphasizes. But Doctor said at least we should have planned, taking into consideration what has happened in the past, and plan maybe ahead. But looking at 2012, 2016, we never had this kind of shooting. We never had deaths. And so going forward, we thought, and I said here on Monday, that for me, I don't think there will be any attempt to snatch any ballot box. But there were people there who were snatching ballot box at Collation Center. Why?
Dr. Norman, laughing.
Yes.
Your thoughts looking at that video, what would you say?
Like COP Bryce said, it was overdone. And that shows poor training of the police in terms of election monitoring. They could have done a much better job. That there is even a greater responsibility on the part of UC to have done a much better job in terms of logistics. Every mega church, I go to ICGC, every mega church has TVs outside of the church hall so that people, overflows, can watch TV. In today's technological world, I'm quite surprised that everybody has to converge at the public square, the village square, to look at what is going on that table. We could project it on screens and keep the people further away.
The level of distrust.
Yes, but we can do that so that they don't have to converge. The police was overwhelmed, and there are more citizens than policemen and women. So if you put the police in this kind of situation, you don't give them enough elbow room to really maneuver. So they have to use the gun to protect themselves, which is also guaranteed by our Constitution. I wonder how they're going to assess culpability of the policeman man that shot the two people. I just don't know how they're going to do that. Because here is a situation where everyone, any reasonable person will conclude that the lives of the police people and the election officials were in danger. So from that point, you can shoot, the Constitution says. So next time, EC, please, put TVs. Yeah, some of them may be snatched, some of them may be smashed, but it's a small price to pay for the democracy of this country. Put TVs outside, put them high so people can see. We used to go outdoor cinema in the villages during the days before television. Let's go back to the old days and project so that people can be kept at a distance so they don't converge. For me, the technology is there. There are people with ideas, but we tend to approach everything from a shallow point of view. It's not one of us, so we're not invited. She's not one of us, so we're not invited. This election has provided the blueprint that we all have to work together, irrespective of our political thinking and persuasions.
Very well. COP.
I think the education was also crucial. And all the education centered on what to do at polling stations, not collation centers. And so if you vote, go home, and then if you want to come and observe counting, you come in the evening. But what about collation center? We didn't do much education about what to do at collation center, because we should have told the public that collation center is just a center for adding up the figures from polling stations. So you may not want to go and observe it because the figures are already there at polling station and they add up.
The party agents are there anyway.
Yes, the party agents are there. So if you have nothing to do, don't go to collation center. Sit at home and then listen to the radio, and the announcement will be made. Instead of everybody running there, converging there, and causing a whole lot of confusion at the
But I think that one, perhaps that could be put at the doorstep of the political parties who actually called on their supporters to mass up at collation centers.
To do what?
Well, to go and observe the collation of the ballots or the votes. But you see, gentlemen, another aspect of the security has to do with the post. Okay, so collation center, everything is done. Then there's the jubilation aspect. In the jubilation, people go overboard and then begin to cause damage to property, private property, public property, and the likes. How is the police to deal with that situation as well? COP, start us off.
We have talked about investigation, and I think the 61 incidents that were listed here, I think some of them involve over celebration and causing damage and causing harm. So all these acts must be investigated. If you cause damage to a property and then you are identified, I think the law should deal with you.
Right. That's what I want.
I will go for CCTV cameras. This city, or every big city, should be littered with CCTV camera. Kampala, Uganda, has done it. There are CCTV cameras everywhere. Rwanda, Kigali, they've done it. I don't see why we talk so much about technology, but the things that are really, really important to the very existence of our being, we don't address them. I think with CCTV camera, no matter whether it's football, whether it's election that people are jubilating, because things do also get out of hand when a team, Kotoko, wins, or Greater Accra House of Folks also wins. So I think we can really move this country forward on the technological plane and really protect the citizenry.
Right. Now, upholding peace and security post-elections is something that obviously we need to look at, because you're talking about situations where, both sides will now have to coexist. The campaign period is over. A winner is declared. We need to move on. How is that to be done? Obviously it's talking about building bridges, mending fences, all of those issues. From the security perspective, what would you recommend, COP?
Well, like you said, the elections are over. Maybe I don't know what the other party will do, whether they will go to court or not. But for now, elections are over. Winner has been declared, and therefore we should move on. We have already talked about the incidents that occurred and the need for proper investigations to be conducted. And whoever is found culpable must be dealt with according to law. But we should move on as a country, because this is not the first time we've had elections. We've had elections since 1992.
Exactly.
And immediately after elections, we live together as one people. And so we should forge ahead.
Some have encouraged jubilate in moderation.
Yes, but if you jubilate, you need not to tease your other opponent, because if you tease, there will be trouble.
Right, Dr. Norman.
It will be a beautiful day in Ghana when the two parties, the dominant parties, can work together. Due to the rhetoric, the insults from both sides before the election, over the years, not just recently, but over the years, I'm not too optimistic to see immediate paradigm shift where the two parties can really seriously work together, because there's so many wounds still festering that when you keep calling somebody incompetent over how many years now, it is very difficult to get his team to now become competent and work with you. When you keep calling somebody corrupt, it is very difficult to really tell the person, oh, now you're a man of virtue, a man of integrity. So for me, I will rather be on the side of caution. That is going to take a monumental shift in humility, in ego, for these two political parties to work together in parliament, because it's probably not going to happen.
What isn't going to happen? Working together?
Yes.
Okay, let me give you that opportunity, COP, to touch on that issue, because that obviously is going to be a novel situation here. That kind of, 137 or 138, 136, that, very slim majority in parliament requiring that, working together,
Doctor has
negotiations
said
and
it all. I don't think they can work together.
You don't think they can work together?
And I'm sure in parliament is going to be hell of the...
Oh my goodness!
Yes, because I don't know how they're going to work, because I heard some people say now that we are at par, we're going to see whether your policies and programs will be approved by Parliament.
Well, very well. We will see about that. Obviously, we would want to see some collaboration in Parliament. At the end of the day, it's the bigger picture we're looking at. There's Mother Ghana we're looking at, and as we continually say, Mother Ghana is bigger than any political party or any individual. On that note, we bring the conversations here to a close. Let me say a big thank you to my panelists on this segment of the show. We've had Dr. Ishmael Norman. He's a President, Institute for Security, Disaster and Emergency Studies, and COP Bright Odro. He is a former Director General of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. Thank you so much, our viewers and listeners. We do appreciate your time. We will be back here same time next week. Until then, do have yourselves a very, very good weekend and a productive week ahead of you. Stay safe and stay positive. We'll see you here next week. Bye-bye.
It's the festive season on TV3 Mentor, and the 9 remaining contestants will bring you good tidings in the penultimate round. Who among Snake, Ayayi, Nettie, Hindu, Abina Morgan, Kweku Bani, Light, Center Vocals, or Sementia would book a trip to the finals, and who would it end in tears for? Be part of the intriguing semi-finals of TV3 Mentor on Sunday 13 December at 8 p.m. live from TV3 Studio B. Studio attendance is strictly by invitation. Keep voting for your favorite contestant via the short code *713*13# or download the TV3 Mentor app from the Google Play or Apple App Stores. TV3 Mentor 2020. On the stage, Mentor takes you higher.
Mentor is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kumba Fish Snack, Cocoa Expert, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, Enapa Foods, Shine Tomato Paste, Black Cologne from Pinaman Cosmetics, Deluxe Acrylic Paint.
The Western Secondary Edition from 20th of December to 27th of December 2020. Ibanazina Tonapade, Ibubuda Mango Fatsa Wanga Sanzia Markets. Irregister, Ebe, Acho Bobo, Equitifu and Bronya. Second season, Fazibiara, Iton and Edmabiara, Iana Brabayana Poplar, Nasan Fagido, Francis Sierra, no Buku Space, no one sent Joe 0245 787886. Yanan Million Zenjo, the Western Secondary Edition. Obey this.
Hey, got it. Our next episode of Family Feud is going viral for sure. See it first right here on TV3. Somebody ain't really drunk. And you drunk all the time. You better shut up.
Oh, okay.
That's your name?
That's my name.
My man. I'm finna give it to you. A lot of people drink in this audience. More alcohol.
Family Feud shows this Saturday at 9 p.m. only on TV3.
Family Feud brought to you by Malta Guinness. Enjoy a world of good.
The Lady Circle.
Your Saturday evenings are never the same when 4 intelligent ladies are on your screens talking about everything that has to do with women as we get into honest conversations, giveaways, and fun games.
Hi guys, this is Shatamishi.
Sissina So, Zinel Zu. I'm Juliet Ibrahim.
This is the Lady Circle.
Join the host of the Lady Circle. Keep watching the Lady Circle. The Lady Circle.
Keep watching the Lady Circle this and every Saturday live on TV3.
Let's get interactive on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Hashtag the Lady Circle.
The Lady Circle every Saturday 6 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by
Yaz Sanitary Pad.
2020 has been that kind of a year, but we are here to help you end the year on a high. That is why TV3 is bringing you Christmas loaded with goodies upon goodies to ensure your festive season is super lit. You can count on us for truly entertaining shows all throughout Christmas. We are also giving you the opportunity to be a star in our Sing Your Carol activation. You can record yourself singing a Christmas carol and send to us via WhatsApp 0242 377 584 or 0547 599 823 for a chance to have your video aired on TV3 and get rewarded with exciting prize packages. You will also get to enjoy special Christmas songs from your favorite artists and Mentor contestants. Plus, there will be a special Christmas celebration on Mentor on the 13th of December this year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. And to top it all up, we're bringing 12 days of TV3 Movie Mania from 21st December to 1st January. We will bring to you not one, but 2 exciting movies every single day. Christmas is coming. This year, Christmas will be best enjoyed on TV3. TV3, first in news, best in entertainment.
From deliberate mentorship of adolescent girls produces a responsible generation. That is why Because I Want to Be is brought to you by UNFPA, Rebecca Foundation, Canadian Embassy, Merck Foundation. Because I Want to Be shows Sundays at 1 p.m. on TV3.
It's the festive season on TV3 Mentor, and the 9 remaining contestants will bring you good tidings in the penultimate round. Who among Snake, Ayayi, Nettie, Hindu, Abina Morgan, Kweku Bani, Light, Center Vocals, or Sementia would book a trip to the finals, and who will it end in tears for? Be part of the intriguing semi-finals of TV3 Mentor on Sunday 13 December at 8 p.m. live from TV3 Studio B. Studio attendance is strictly by invitation. Keep voting for your favorite contestant via the shortcode *713*13# or download the TV3 Mentor app from the Google Play or Apple App Stores. TV3 Mentor 2020. Own the stage. Mentor takes you higher.
Mentor is brought to you by Heaven Insecticide Spray and Coil, Kumba Fish Snack, Cocoa Expert, Cocoa Dairy Free Coconut Milk, Enapa Foods, Shine Tomato Paste, Black Cologne from Pinaman Cosmetics, Deluxe Acrylic Paint.
So who was some car when you make can be more? So who want to kakua when you make could be more? Fabi Biaramano, Fabi Biaramano, Dimafunya me, Beta Mauda, Fabi Biaramano, Gofue, Fabi Biaramano, Mami, Dimafunya me, Beta Mauda. So who was some car when you make can be more? So who want to kakua when you make could be more? Fabi Biaramano, Gofue, Mami, Dimafunya me, Beta Mauda. Fabi Biaramano, Fabi Biaramano, come on for me, Becama Wuda. Assemble not to you've been to be da. Abo proper baby, and a baba baby. Can one stem chonya me, never want to know so. Come on for me, Becama Wuda. General, come on for me, better mauda. Messi, semena toa, it been to up nata. Aba proper baby, ada pabo baby. Can one same chonya me, if I want to know so. Come on for me, better mauda. Yeah, Christ, Fabi Biaramano, hey, Fabi Biaramano. Come on for me, Beta Mauda. Hey, Fabi Biaramano, Fabi Biaramano. Come on for me, Beta Mauda. So who was some car when you make can be more? So no one to crack when you make can be more. Yanka, Fabi Biaramano, Mami, Fabi Biaramano. Tima for me. Beta Mauda, hey, Fabi Biaramano, Fue Fabi Biaramano, Timafunya me, Beta Mauda, hey, Fabi Biaramano, yes, Fabi Biaramano, hey, come on for me, Beta Mauda.
Yeah.